Welcome back, everyone, to XP Hunters. I'm Hey Jay, and joining me once again, we've got Blue, the instructor, and today we're talking about why do Monster Hunter fans hate Wild Hearts? Enter Stinger. I just realized we don't have a stinger for this, Blue.
Well, we're always changing our format. This format, we're going straight into the business, which I like. We're going to tackle this and then we'll have our fun conversation at the end.
Yes. So if you are new to the podcast, it's roughly a 1 to 2 hour podcast where we talk about the topic. Then we get into some old business stuff we've been playing, thoughts on the community feedback on the last podcast and all that. So stay tuned after the main topic for all that good stuff. But let's get into it. So today, why do Monster Hunter fans hate Wild Hearts? And I want to preface this by saying it's not every fan. I think it's a vocal minority. But Blue, you have seen this on your own side. I have seen it in a minor way. But I think this is a sign of a greater thing that we see in the gaming industry, not just with Monster Hunter and Wild Hearts, but video game tribalism, essentially, and people being very protective of something that they love when they see a competitor. So what have you seen on your side when it comes to whether you want to use Monster Hunter and Wild Hearts or just video game tribalism as a broader topic?
It's like Phil Spencer said himself. He doesn't believe in video game tribalism. He thinks it's bad for the business, and I 100% agree with that kind of thing. And I honestly, for me, I'm like, if you have the opportunity to play as much as possible, why wouldn't you? That's just more to take in. But ever since Wild Hearts dropped, even a little bit right before, my community, who I love, we have such a good, wholesome community, but so many of my community, our community, Monster Hunter, have been attacking Wild Hearts. And I'm thinking like, well, that's why I gotta play it. I gotta see, does it hold up? And because I have demands that I want from Monster Hunter. And in this podcast, we're going to talk about how Wild Hearts actually checked off some of those boxes I've been wanting from Monster Hunter even before, like my beloved Monster Hunter World even happened.
Right. And on my side, I haven't seen it too much. I've seen it a lot with the EA sign attached to Wild Hearts, which scared a lot of people. And I think it's good skepticism. People are good to be skeptical of something new. Wild Hearts is a new IP. EA has a reputation. And, there were a lot of red flags that I think it's completely valid to approach this new IP with skepticism and caution. But you and I, we dove right in and tried it out. But even with that skepticism, though, after, playing it and starting to praise some of the game's positives, because this game does do some things that I think Monster Hunter can learn from, with the two franchises being completely separate thing that serves a similar community. But I have encountered a few individuals who are just like, nope, Wild Hearts is trash, it's garbage, and they will jump on the negative stuff. And I'm not even sure if they've played it to form their own opinion or if it's just, oh, this is too much like Monster Hunter, stay away. And I can't really understand that other than it's a fear maybe of like losing that thing that they love or the competitor diminishing it in some way.
Yeah. A lot of those what I call headline haters, like they just see the headline, they didn't even read the topic, like the whole article. They just see the headline, they're like, "Oh, I'm bad now." And then, but yeah, I'm not really sure where that comes from as well, because if you love something, wouldn't you want more of it? But maybe it's that that not familiarity. It's that the people are afraid of change, for example, and also maybe it's a loyalist type of thing because in recognition, because you love something so much. Like I talk about with Pokemon, you love Pokemon, but you're afraid to go try out like Temtem because you go like, oh no, I don't want to try that. Like, of course not. And but same thing here. Like again, like because we have a lot of other hunting games, whether it be Dauntless, Soul Sacrifice, Tokiden, which Wild Hearts is the spiritual successor to.
I really want to try that one because I've never tried that. Yeah.
The thing is, you've got, what is it called? God Eater, like 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
But the point is, we have other hunting options out there. The only thing that's interesting about Monster Hunter is it's the king. Like, I made a comment last time where I talked about how I love all the Monster Hunters and how, they're all Olympic athletes, but in the Olympics, even though you're all Olympic athletes, someone has to win like a bronze medal. And the thing is with Monster Hunter though, when it comes down to the hunting genre, the genre that they have defined, they are the gold, silver, and bronze medalists. Like they've won all three. It's like, oh, it's what a sweep. But Wild Hearts.
Dauntless fans will disagree with you. I
So,
will
but
not.
Wild Hearts is the first time I actually could say, "Whoa, this is a good competitor."
Hmm.
And this is the first time I've played a game that I really go, I'm into it. I love it. And but just because I love this doesn't mean I hate Monster Hunter. As a matter
Hmm.
of fact, it's that thing we always say about any fandom. It's the people who hate the thing the most are the biggest fans. So
Because hate is passion. So you're right on that.
mhm.
That if you hate something, uh, well, do you mean the people who hate Monster? Like, are you referring to the hating Monster Hunter first and then becoming the fan?
No, I'm referring to like people who complain about things. Like, look at Star Wars people.
Oh
Like they
yes,
they get
yes, yes,
so
yes,
uppity and antsy
yes.
about things, and then it's like, why are you guys so like angry about this? Like, oh, we talk about, it. We love it.
You say this as I posted today. I just finished. I 100%ed Lego Star Wars today, and I just
Oh,
shared a
nice.
like, oh look what I did. Still hate the sequels though, and I'm gonna have to hold back because I could have a whole podcast episode on my thoughts on Star. I'm
Star Wars will be for another time.
I
So,
would love to get into it because I've grown up with Star Wars and got really into the extended universe stuff, into like the novels and all that. And ever since Disney has acquired it, it's been very polarizing for the community. And I don't hate Disney. I just, there are some things I hate, like the sequels, and there's a lot of the other stuff Disney has done with Star Wars is good though. So, anyways, this is not about Star
that's
Wars.
for another time. Right.
Yes,
Reeling you in.
thank you.
So, all right. So, I think the best way of talking about, because video game tribalism is a very large topic, and it's the thing of, because you see people argue, like let's say Xbox versus like PlayStation. Then they have things like screw that, consoles versus PC. And then heck, like one thing we'll talk about a little bit later is gyro controls, like VR stuff like that, where there's all kinds of things that people are adamant about and passionate about. But I just don't want that passion to be misguided. That passion misused.
Yeah,
Again,
and on the console front, I've never understood it. And I'm not actually sure how old you are, Blue, but I assume we're
we're the same
similar.
age. We're,
Okay.
we're like 2 months apart.
Oh, okay. So yeah, we've lived through the console wars, if you will, the great
Yeah.
battles of the '90s, Sega versus
Of the Sega
Nintendo.
and the Ten don't.
Yeah, and even at that like fever pitch of like there was the Nintendo fandom and the Sega fandom, and I grew up with an NES, and then I moved over to the Sega Genesis, and I loved Sonic way more than Mario at the time. But I was never like Mario sucks or this can't be good. It was always appreciating the two. So I've never understood the how to be part of a fandom and hate on another thing just because it's not part of your fandom. Like having it's a mindset and a psychology I just cannot get behind, especially in more modern times, the Switch and PlayStation. Let's say I think those are the greatest like competitors, given Xbox and Nintendo are pretty much partnering in every possible way. Like if you're playing Nintendo and you love Nintendo, that's great. But why are you hating on PlayStation, which are making great video games? And it's one thing to say, and maybe it's you're hating on the PlayStation community because all of your encounters with PlayStation fans have been negative, and maybe that's where that
Sure.
shift. And it's like, well, so where does that start? Because maybe the PlayStation fans are like that because they are seeing the same from Nintendo fans. It's fascinating, and I just don't understand where it starts because at the end of the day, if you love video games, whether it's on this platform or this platform, video game is good. Like
Mm.
if you're gonna love Mario 3D World, does that mean you're not gonna love God of War? No,
Well,
there's no reason not to. Or Spider Man, as I just realized.
a good example of that would be like if you love Mario, does that mean you're gonna hate Banjo Kazooie? Not Banjo Kazooie. Yeah, Banjo Kazooie would work. The thing is in this scenario. But the thing is, even though those were technically both on like Nintendo 64 and such, I was
Yeah.
trying to say Crash Bandicoot because that's a PlayStation
Yeah.
first
Well,
started.
well, I do like Mario, and I don't like Crash Bandicoot. It's a bad example.
Crash is a little hard. But the thing is,
Um, Ratchet and Clank though. Ratchet and Clank is a
oh, I
great
love Ratchet and Clank. Anyway, yeah, what about
has
Jack and Dexter?
yeah. So I don't know. And have you ever like had a friend in your circle that was very tribalistic? I don't even know if that's a word, but
Yes, yeah, yeah. It's funny because like you, I grew up with like everything, and
mhm.
I always loved everything. But I did have friends from when I was a kid all the way to today that have their preference, whether it be friends, coworkers, bosses, whatever.
Yeah.
Uh, they everyone has their preference, and I just don't see it. And again, sometimes I told you it's misguided because they can bring up points that
Hmm.
I go because I love to discuss. And I don't
Yeah.
say argue; it's discourse. I grew up doing things like mock trial and stuff like that, where and debate and all that type of stuff. So I love talking about anything. Heck, I love talking about like if I'm for something, but because I study both sides, if I'm talking to somebody who's for the same thing I am, I'll talk and act like I'm on the opposite end to
Hmm.
have a dialogue with them.
Yeah.
And like while you and I, the last two podcasts, we've had opposite opinions on the topic, but we come to a conclusion. I think today is the one time we're going to be in agreement that there's no need for the tribalism that's going on specifically between Monster Hunter and Wild Hearts. I think that they can coexist,
Hmm.
and I think they each bring something to the table. And I'm looking forward to going over what does Wild Hearts bring for those of you who haven't experienced it
Hmm.
that you might love if you're a Monster Hunter fan, and what are some of the things that maybe Wild Hearts is lacking that they could still learn from Monster Hunter?
And I totally agree with you where that's where it's important. The tribalism I think is definitely toxic, but having a preference is okay, and being
Yes,
able
absolutely. You still have
to
your favorite. There's nothing wrong with that.
right, having your favorites fine, saying I like this because of this and I don't like this because of that. That's perfectly legit. Like I've actually never owned an Xbox really. Okay, I owned an Xbox and I ended up selling it after a year. I've never really enjoyed the Xbox brand because I don't like the games found on Xbox. Like there's not enough games that I like
Mhm.
to justify purchasing it. That said, I think Game Pass is one of the best thing that's ever happened to gaming.
Mm,
It's
yeah, Game
just
Pass is awesome.
it doesn't really fit my lifestyle. But as a business model, I'm like, oh, that's amazing. That's great. The Switch and the Steam Deck is another great thing. You know, those are essentially
Oh yes,
competitors.
yes. Oh.
I can't comment on it because I don't have a Steam Deck. But
Oh, Steam Deck, by the way, I'll make a quick comment. Not only does it work incredibly well, but I love that for those the Switch users out there, I want you to know it does have gyro. So there's
oh,
gyro controls in that Steam Deck. So if you're someone who's like, oh, I want to play like Doom Eternal with gyro, good news.
that's good. Gyro is. We'll get into that.
Okay, that's
But
later. That's for
yeah,
later.
but I think it's very important, and the better as a community that we are to have these discussions of, and we're going to do this today with Wild Hearts. What does
Mhm.
Wild Hearts do well, and what does it do not so well? And I think that's where we're going to have some differing opinions because you're further in the game than I
Yes.
am.
Yeah. Sure.
And it's the same thing I think we do as a community. For example, when Monster Hunter Rise came out, well, I was new to the community, but that seemed like a very divisive game. And I don't know what the other games were like.
Mhm.
Like when Monster Hunter World dropped, was everybody like, "Oh, this is an amazing game," or was it? I think there was some. It sounds like there was some
There
division.
was a little division, but there was such an outcry of how much new blood it brought in. I
Hmm.
mean, heck, especially even when PC happened, one thing Capcom saw was that how 50%
Hmm.
of the sales of Monster Hunter World were actually on PC, and that came out like a year later.
Oh wow.
And right, so again, trust me, we'll have a discussion at some point about talking about Rise and World and platforms and such. That's something I do
Hmm.
want to talk about. Maybe not today, but yeah.
Right.
But for now, I think also as for Wild Hearts, but you see on further, we're gonna mostly focus only on Chapter One because they're broke up in chapters for everyone.
Yeah. So no
We'll how many
spoilers.
chapters there are.
Right.
But for our Monster Hunter community, think of chapters kind of like I like to use this as an example. It may not be the best, but like for those of you who got into G rank, we have like one, two, three, four, like five, 6 stars, stuff like that. Think of each chapter as a star rank, basically. There's just like
Oh.
5 to 10 monsters in this rank, and there's 5 to 10 monsters in that rank, and going up. Think of it like that, and it progresses, etc. So there is a low rank and high rank, yes, but for now, just use the chapters in that mindset.
Okay. And that's as far as I made it. So it's also for
Fine.
my sake for not spoiling. And I can't
I
spoil anything beyond chapter one for all of you.
And I have to apologize to everyone who's been waiting for this podcast and who's been coming in bugging me about it. I'm the reason it's been held off for the last like 2 weeks because I wanted Jay to finish chapter one before we had this talk.
And I think
So
it's important because without spoiling this, well, I guess we have to talk about this. It's after chapter one that you really get access to all of the weapons in the game,
all 8 weapons. Yep.
which is an interesting choice because that's actually
Yeah.
maybe a good starting point. Because Monster Hunter, it's like, here are all the weapons, go for it. But Wild
Uh,
Hearts holds back the arsenal.
what if I told you that Monster Hunter wasn't always that way?
Wait, was it? No?
So in Monster Hunter 1, for example, there's technically like a longsword, which was in the great sword tree.
Really?
Then there's things, yeah, and then you have things
You
like
say
the
technically though, is it an actual longsword or like?
it. I mean, it's in the great sword, but it's technically like think of it like proto longsword. And,
Okay.
and then you had to and also there was a like you had to unlock things like with try and such, and then we had like dual blades was actually in sword and shield,
Hmm.
is a two swords because I think it's actually called two swords,
Hmm.
in Japan, but stuff like that. But then by the time we got the Monster Hunter Dos, and basically Monster Hunter Freedom,
Mhm.
that's when they defined it as their own weapons as well. And then things have been going from there. But Monster Hunter 1, there was a lot of growing pains. They're figuring stuff
Right.
out.
Now, that said, I do think for a new franchise like Wild Hearts, limiting the weapon choice at first is a great idea because
Yes.
it lets you introduce the player base to, okay, try these weapons. These are different enough. And then, by chapter one, you've probably grown to enjoy a few of them. And now they're like, well, here's more. Whereas I don't think you can do that with an established franchise like Monster Hunter because people would riot
Mhm.
if they couldn't access their favorite weapon right off the bat.
No, I 100% agree. I mean, there's something that Wild Hearts does because it's a brand new IP,
Yeah.
everyone. Keep that in mind. This is their first IP of this. So our first installment is the tutorial area because there is a tutorial area, and the very first hunt you do is with the weapon they hand you, which is the uh,
Katana.
Karakuri katana. And so the katana is your starting weapon. And once you finish that first hunt, you'll get your blacksmith, and then you can officially build other weapons.
Mm-hmm.
But until that point, you have this one weapon think of it like if they made a demo for everyone to download and try, I think up until that point would be the point of letting people do it.
Yeah.
Just to try, you know.
Well, Monster Hunter does the same too, where usually your like little introductory scene, you're stuck with one weapon, whether it's sword and shield or long sword.
Nope.
No,
You
or
actually like look at Rise. In Rise, you get handed a longsword, but
yeah.
before you go on your first hunt, you can go to your box, change your weapon immediately.
What about World? I
When
think
you
World you start with sword and
world,
shield.
you don't have a weapon at all. You get to Astera, and then field team leader says, "Hey, come into your little barracks." You go down in there, and he
Hmm.
says, "Pick a weapon." And you pick your weapon.
Oh, right. Okay.
hmm So they always let you choose your weapon at the beginning. Now, granted, traditionally they have a great sword on their back, but you have to go up to your box to change your weapon.
Right.
But you're never thrown to your first hunt with a
Okay.
weapon.
The first Monster Hunter game forces you with the sword and shield
I
because
believe that it does.
I that one I can say for sure it forces you
I want to say you were 100% correct on that.
because you have to craft your other weapons. And I don't know if
But once
they
again, that was the first
exactly.
one.
So when
Just
you're
like
starting
Wild
the
Hearts.
IP, yeah, having more what do you call that? More limits, especially on a new IP, is very helpful because it lets the designers and the developers really like lead the player into the experience that they want them to have. And then as that
Sure.
community forms around the IP, it's like, okay, now we start losing control and start catering a little bit more to what the community needs or
Yeah, I
wants.
mean, look at you mentioned God of War earlier. Look at
Yep.
the OG God of War. They start you with just the Blades of Chaos, but then as you go, you get more weapons and magic and all this stuff. Imagine they gave you all that at the beginning. That'd be
Yeah.
silly.
Yeah. Absolutely. So talking about what Wild Hearts does well, what it doesn't, what are some other pros that really stood out to you of like, I love what they're doing here. Can you please bring it in Monster Hunter?
Well, again, let's break it down piece by piece. That I think
Mm-hmm.
that's the best way we're going to handle it. So, let's go with the hunting presentation. But actually, before we even hunt, let's look at character creator.
Too
Monster
too
Hunter started
complex.
because it was an older game. It
Yeah.
had very limited character creator. That's fine. I mean, look at Knights of the Republic. You basically only chose like your face. That's it.
Yeah.
And then and then you get to something like Monster Hunter Online, where this is the Chinese one, where they finally let you have like good customization, and it looked really good. And then you had Monster Hunter World, good customization. Rise, they gave us some good customization. So we finally get that point. So because this is a Generation 9 game, Wild Hearts is.
Mm.
Um, the thing is, because we're in Generation 9, we're able to like gaming. I mean, the thing is, they should I hope to have a good character creator, and I have to say this is in my top three best character creators I've seen. I know that I think it's called Black Desert Online has a really good character creator, but the other
Hmm.
one, of course, is a big shout out to Code Vein for everyone who knows what I'm talking about. That is possibly the greatest character creator I have
Man.
ever seen. You can spend 3 hours working on a character, and with some of the stuff you can do, it's amazing, and I love it. And that was right up there. I really loved how in depth and how much work they put into this character creator, and I just so props to them. So I say like Monster Hunter, you're doing great. Wild Hearts, your first time, you did great. I'm proud of both of you.
And here's where I say I freaking don't care about it's overwhelming for someone like me that wants to get into the game. I recognize character creator is really important for people who have that creative drive to like they have a vision for what they want their character to look like. I don't like customizing characters a lot, which is why I go with a lot of kind of pre-made
Mhm.
people. What I will say with Wild Hearts that I like it in its character creation is the hair. I've never seen. I think that's what I use to like judge a character creation is how much flexibility do you give me with your hair, and the fact that Wild Hearts, I think you can customize 3 or 4 elements of your hair from like the strands in your bangs, the strands over your ear, the strand behind, and then the top. I might be misremembering a little bit, but I don't know. That's what I like. I enjoy like customizing hair when it comes to like, oh, make the cheekbone more pronounced or the chin like a little like that. Just you lose me, and I just I'm like, okay, let me get into the
Let me
game.
have my hair, let me have my colors, and let me pick my eyes. I'm good. Let's go.
Exactly. Like even Monster Hunter 4U, I love. I think you have the choice of like 8 or 16 faces. I'm like, let's go. This one resonates with me. Let's go.
But after we, of course, we make our character, we go into, like I said, like the quest, how quests are presented. Now, I love how quests are done. This is a mixed bag, though, because again, everything we have a love-hate here.
Yep.
Because for the way you get quests, there are people in the village that you talk to in Minato, and they give you the quest personally. You get a nice dialogue, all this stuff. It feels very organic and more immersive,
Yep.
rather than just going up to a quest board, there it is, etc. Now, granted, you can see, like, look at good old Monster Hunter 4U, which you're playing right now.
Yep.
There are plenty of people you talk in the village, they give you quests. And other Monster Hunters have done that too, actually. I mean, even when you played in World, you may not remember, but you talk to a lot of, like, the other handlers and hunters that were walking around periodically. Like, they, like, what was another example? Like something like Sisterly Fourth was a person, for example, and she'll give you a quest to go get something or whatever. But or you go talk to the ecology person. The
Yep.
only difference is that there was dialogue presented in Wild Hearts, a fully voiced. So it may seem longer or
Oh.
maybe more immersive or whatever. Yeah, we're gonna talk about voice acting later. The thing is, but the thing is, I personally like the voice acting, which I'll reiterate later. That I like that, but at the same time, if you don't want to, just read it, click it, read it, click it. But I feel like that gives me at least an extra option rather than it not being
Yeah.
present at all. But like I said, so that's one thing they do. Would I like a quest board though? Also, kind of yes. I think I would love to see those dialogues, but also have it all really easily laid out because you have to go to the map and you have to hover over these symbols that are the monsters, and then they'll have like you can toggle up and down the different versions and such.
Hmm.
I kind of would like a quest board still, where it's all presented together. But at the same time, I do like having to go pick up the quest too. I like so I kind of like a mix, and but yeah, that's
I'm
my
good.
thought on quest
Yeah.
presentation.
I really love how they present it here too. I don't miss a quest board. I don't think a quest board fits within the lore, the world of Wild Hearts.
Oh, this one, no.
No, I do love the fact that it's like as a hunter, I'm just going out in the wild and I'm gonna hunt. And then there are some quests that I pick up in town, which it all ties together well. In Monster Hunter, it all makes sense that oh, there's a guild and they're funneling quests here, and you can go to the guild counter and like oh, almost like a bounty. Like okay, I'll take this. Actually, now that I say it like that, like if there was a bounty board in Wild Hearts, I don't think I'd be opposed to that.
They have kind of a little bit something like that. That's when you go talk to Nobu. Nobu Mitsu, he's the Waka looking fella.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Fisherman.
the fisherman.
Uh,
Yeah.
Nobu, he has like these little tasks that you can do There's
Hmm.
kind of like side mission, like side tasks. Kind of like when you go on Monster Hunter, you could be like, oh, get a mount, or hey, break the tail. It's kind of like that. Like he's like, oh, go hunt with this weapon 2 times. Oh,
Yeah.
go gather these materials in this area like 10 times. So those give you like rewards as well. They're like your little side missions. But yeah, I think a cool like, and yes, for like a bounty, that's kind of like what the visitor system is, which reminds me of, if for anyone who remembers, what were they called? They were called like hunting helpers or something like that. They used to show up in like your hub in like 3U and like 4U and stuff like that. But they're like, hey, I'm a hunter that you've met before. Like, I'd send me out, or like I have your guild card. Send
Oh,
me out
right. Yeah.
to missions, and
Actually,
that's kind of what the visitor is.
what a game that we've never talked about on this podcast, which I think does it perfectly well. It's Witcher 3, which is not a
Ah,
hunting
yes.
game at all. But you play as a hunter essentially, and
Hmm.
you can take quests from people, and you can go into town, and there's a quest board, not a quest board, but a bounty that is unique to these little towns.
Hmm.
That really plays well because in the lore of Witcher 3, you play as this character who is known for hunting beasts and getting paid for it. Now, would it work in Wild Hearts? I don't think so, because it sounds like hunters are extinct and you're kind of the last of your kind, if I picked up on that correctly.
We're
So
very far and few between now.
right, so I wouldn't, it doesn't make sense for a town to have a bounty board if there's no one to come around and pick up the bounties. Um, so there's that. I like that. I don't like the voice acting, and I'm not going to get into the voice acting. I don't like the fact that everything has so much dialogue, because I don't know if it's the voice acting itself or how they choose to read the script, but it just seems to drag on so long. And maybe it's because there's something I can't quite put my finger on. I don't know if it's just this isn't how people talk, but everything seems so dragged out when they talk, of like I just don't want to hear it. And I'm struggling as a streamer because I'm like, well, does the audience want to hear it? Like they probably don't want to skip it. So I found the middle ground where, because yeah, you can skip all the dialogue, like you can just read it and skip the vocals. So what I do now is I cut off the NPC or the quest giver at the end of their sentence, so I don't let them say the whole
Yeah,
thing.
I hear you clicking. Yeah, you go like click. I can hear
As long
it.
as, so if someone's just listening to the stream, it's not like just gibberish. I kind of get them to I interrupt them at the right point so that you're getting context, but that we're not sitting there listening to the whole thing drag on forever.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna jump. Let's talk about voice acting there for
Yeah.
real quick, so we can knock it out. Is that like I actually got to talk with the localization and voiceover producer, and while I was talking to this person, it was really great. I appreciate the conversation, but they talked about how the reason why they talk the way they do, and well, first of all, let me just touch on the voice actors. I
Mm-hmm.
want to just say I actually really love the voice actors, and some people commented on like there's this kind of like you've seen it where they chime in and use Japanese every so often,
Yeah.
and that's actually what drew the producer over to come talk to me, because I had a little counter, because we love our counters, and I
Mm-hmm.
have a counter and it says Japanese. I wrote in Japanese, and they were curious. They said, "Oh, I've been watching some of your streams, and I'm just curious, like, what's with the Japanese counter?" And I explained to them how, well, periodically they just kind of like pull this Dora the Explorer thing where they like just say like a Japanese word. Sometimes they literally say like arigato, and then they say thank you. Like they'll say thank you like right after. Like you just
Right.
said what you said. And then or they say like yosh, and then be like let's go. Like way to go, team. And I'm
Right.
like you like we're having a Dora the Explorer moment. So I was like, these are great. So I loved hearing what they had to say, and then like translating it for like chat and stuff like that. So we use it as an educational moment. So I started like tallying it, and we even had like rules to be like to, because like right now I think our counter, which is pretty high, it's like in the 50s or 60s, or maybe higher actually now. But even with some of our rule sets, like no proper noun stuff like that, because there are
Right.
a lot of times they'll say like Rosetsu, and then they'll say Deathstalker, and it'd be like, oh, that's the same creature. That's like saying Gojira and then Godzilla. It's the
Right.
same thing. It's
Yeah.
a proper noun. But like and then other words too, like sensei and stuff like that. Like nope, we don't need to count those. Like repeated. So like we were not counting a lot of repeated words. So we had our thing, and that's why we had our little counter. But we've been having a lot of fun with it. And and I said like it kind of gives me like an isekai type of feel where like I feel like this person, like I have a self character. I have blue and I have a self character. And I feel like while I'm on my self character, like I was ported to this world in some way. I feel so foreign.
Yeah.
And it's funny because the voiceover producer laughed and we talked about that, and they said The reason why they did it was because you enter this game as a non-native in a fantasy Japan.
Hmm.
So we didn't want to just put American accents in the game and the like. It
Oh.
takes place in a mix of like the Edo period and a feudal Japan.
Hmm.
So, and as we mentioned earlier, there's not a lot of hunters because they all went to war, like with the shogun and samurai and all that was going on.
Mm.
And that's why there's not a lot of us. And that our characters even can choose to say like, oh, I'm fleeing from the war, wars for soldiers. I'm a hunter, that kind of thing. I think it's awesome that we get a little bit of dialogue in the beginning with Mujina, where you get to kind of build a little bit of a background, kind of like they did with Mass
Yep.
Effect. Because I watched your stream and some of the dialogue you have is different from my dialogue
Oh,
because they
interesting.
reference it. Yes. And I was like, oh, cool. I was like, I love every time I watch something on your stream that's different than mine, because of our choices. And my
I
two
didn't know
characters,
that.
yeah, and my two characters, because I had them pick different things, I also got to see different dialogues with them through those too.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, it's really great, and they come back to it sometimes, and I like those little tidbits. Again, but some people don't want that fluff. Some
Right.
people are just like, um, they're just like, oh, I just want to. I want Monster Rises. I want to be able to just
Yeah.
go to the board, get my quest, jump in, jump out, and I get that.
But
I like
that's
fluff. I like immersion. So
I think it's great for those who want it. It's an amazing attention to detail. I've been told that some people in chat were saying this, that the dialogue is supposed to be constructed in a little bit more of how they speak in Japanese, and so some people have said that if you play the game with Japanese voice acting, it comes across as much more natural. And apparently, when you like translate that more to English, like the listen to voice over in English, that's why it sounds more slow. Just because, and I'm talking completely out of ignorance here, but apparently just the tonal difference, everything like between Japanese and English, the pacing of the word, especially for that era, would have been all different.
yeah,
So maybe that's why it sounds so
I
foreign.
can explain that. I can explain
Sure,
that.
yeah.
So the thing is, okay, as for the speed at which they are talking, I find it personally humorous because when you speak Japanese, each
Mm.
word is spoken with equal syllable speed.
Okay.
So like we'll say tsundere, but it isn't tsundere, it's tsundere. Tsundere is how you're supposed to say it. Japanese don't enunciate their syllables and often sound monotone. When you
Mm.
flip the language on them with something like English,
Hmm.
you'll end up with what we have. Also, the dialogue is being delivered with like a dictatorial intent. Like, look at the Ents from Lord of the Rings. They speak
Oh
slowly.
yes.
Jawas and Star Wars speak quickly. An
Right.
example is in a somber situation, the director, like the VA director, should want their voice actors to deliver their words heavy and weighed down, not quickly and weightless. So, um,
Right.
the other funny thing is like the voice actors, by the way, for the Japanese version and the English version are the same voice actors.
Oh
They
wow.
are they are all local Japanese VAs
Right.
that are bilingual.
Wow.
So,
That must have been
yep.
hard to find
So
that cast.
so that is awesome. Matter of fact, the guy who is Usiji,
Uji
let's call it
Shige?
he, yeah, what's it? It's
Ushige?
Yus- Yushigi. The thing, Yushigi, his person is Yuki Matsusaki. The thing is, and they loved his voice acting, everything so much that he actually became the voice director of the game, the
Oh.
producer when they hired him. Yeah, and I love that guy by the way because like there's a part in the story where like he gets heated up, like he gets fired up, and I was like, "Woo! Look at the fire in him!" And
Mhm.
then what's her name? Suzuran. Let's go. So so Suzuran Sensei, she was like, wow. She's like, you're so heated up. I'm like, yeah. Like I felt it. Like the voice acting gets really good. And now in Natsume, she's like slower and she's sweet. She's more methodical how she talks. You have
Right.
people like let's go Kogaku who is like more sultry. She's trying to lure in. She's kind of like doing that sexy voice.
Right.
Like everyone who does the character they're supposed to do, they nail it. And the problem is if you're someone who's like they're talking so slow, well, it's intentional, unfortunately,
I
and
just
it's a bit of that bilingual to English
I
thing.
I don't know if it's maybe my mindset of I want to be, because I just thought of a counterpoint. Ghost of Tsushima. was a game that I loved, and
Good
it's
game.
also based in well, not Edo, Japan. It's even further back in time, but
Mhm.
uh, if I'm remembering correctly, the voice acting was also with like a hint of, I don't remember. I recall the voice acting had like an accent, like a Japanese accent to it, if I recall
Mhm.
correctly. Um,
Mhm.
but I never, at no point was I like, oh, the voice acting here drags on in Ghost of Tsushima. That said, that was a single player game I was playing on my own that I felt a lot more immersed as this character living through a pretty traumatic period in this character's life. So I
Mhm.
don't know if my mindset was different. Whereas like here, it's more methodical, where I'm like, I get that there's more world building happening, but I also kind of just want to be like, okay, what do you need? What can I help you with? Can I just go and, but it just feels like, oh, it keeps talking and talking. So, um, I don't know, but I think my opinion might change, because another thing that I've shared in my journals, which I started on this channel, is at first I didn't like the story where it was going. I was like, oh, this is falling flat. But now that I'm done chapter one, I'm finding a little bit more charm in the characters, and they are growing on me a little bit. So maybe my tune will change when I, accept more of the game for what it's trying to be, which is, to
Mm.
your point, a lot more of this. You're a foreigner in a new land, right?
Yeah,
In
and
a
then
version of Japan.
because you're not from here, yeah, exactly. And what was I gonna say? That's like our mod mini guy. He when he rolled credits, he's like, man, he goes, when I by the time I rolled credits, I loved like the story that was given to me. So I'm really hoping that, again, like I say, if you had a rough presentation, now granted, we know a lot of your rough presentation has been technical problems.
Oh,
That, I
that,
mean, that
yeah.
sucks. Like, I mean, it sucks because, like I said, I had zero technical problems. I have not personally experienced any tech problems, but I've seen you, my wife, heck, Mel, I've seen other streamers, etc.,
Yeah.
who have had problems. Like, this is universal, and I thought it was only PC people. I have now also talked with people on console who have had problems,
Hmm.
and so. But again, I just hopefully they slowly keep patching things and things get cleaner. But otherwise, the game runs fine. The game play and everything is there, and that's good.
When
So
it
with that,
runs good, it's fun. But yeah.
oh my gosh, right. So with that, that makes me want to talk about, of course, the gameplay, which is let's talk about what the two things go together. That's weapons and monsters.
Hmm.
So you got to touch a little bit on the weapons. You've now have all eight.
Yep.
And now granted you haven't hunted with every weapon. Because
No.
and you don't fully understand all the weapons. Like heck, I watching you try to figure out hand cannon, I was like, oh no, I was again, I was having a chat off to the side, so I wasn't in the chat to be like, Jay, this is what you need to do. But I'm like, you'll
Well,
figure it out.
yeah, on the training dummy, the new weapons that unlock after chapter one, I was having a blast with them. No pun intended. On the training dummy, and I got the morphing one, which I forget what it's called, but it morphs between
Ah,
like
the
five.
Katakuri staff.
Yeah, Karakuri stuff. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. And I went out and took it on a hunt. And it was one of the worst experiences I've ever had. Like, it was so hard. I was getting destroyed. I couldn't charge my morph gauge. I was like, how am I going to land these morph attacks? Because I kept getting interrupted, and I just could not like find the way. I couldn't find the way to make this weapon work in the hunt. I'm like, this is so much harder. And that whole stream, and I'm going to share with this more in the journal more than here. Just the difficulty of the game has reached a point where I'm really uncomfortable. Like it's borderline frustrating. But the reason that I'm actually kind of happy to feel that is I remember playing with the Switch axe in Monster Hunter World and being frustrated because I couldn't use the weapon properly. The fights were getting harder, and I remember chat giving me a lot of tips on how, like, I wasn't using sword mode in the Switch axe for the longest time. I was always
I
hitting
noticed
everything with
that.
the axe. And so I have that to remind myself that, look, I felt like this with a Switch axe when I was just mainly using axe, and then when I eventually learned how to use the sword mode, like things got sliced and diced faster or something. It's the same thing right now. I can do decent with the. Actually, no, I was actually struggling with the katana. It was against a lava back, and it was a harder version of a lava back, and I was just getting like everything he was like he was attacking me with was landing. I couldn't dodge anything, and it's because I don't know if I was impatient or I just wasn't good at dodging, but frick, it was getting irritating because I could see the wind up. I'm like, I should be able to dodge this. Why aren't I dodging it? Or I can't make this land. So it there's a learning curve to all of these weapons and to this game, as there should be.
That's interesting because that's going to come way into play way later when we talk about something, but I don't want to touch on it yet.
Sure.
But yeah, it has to do with your first time playing something with new mechanics. But
Yep.
it's interesting because like I had the privilege of playing with Umel and Mini Guy. Shout out to you guys.
Yep.
We went hunting together and we did a rotation. Every hunt we had to play. Told the other guy what he had to use as
Oh,
a weapon.
wow.
So we kept rotating our weapons till we got to play them all. And for those of us who were good with the weapons, like Umel uses what's it called? The Nodachi. I use bow. Like Mini Guy loves umbrella.
Hmm.
And the thing is, I love how we don't even call it Wakasaga or whatever. We just call it umbrella.
It's an umbrella. We
So,
all understand what it
uh,
means. Yeah.
so anyway, and we were teaching each other tips and stuff like that. But the one thing we also learned from each other was how, oh, correction, from the weapons by making ourselves rotate, is how all the different weapons, based off the katakuri you use, like the basic ones and
Yeah.
even the fusion ones, become that's where the weapons become even deeper. You can learn the basics.
Right.
And that, by the way, that training dummy doesn't teach you all the basics. Just letting you know.
Okay.
So just be known that. Because like for example, I was trying to show you the bow
Yeah.
and how you can build like a one, two, or three like square block thingy will give you different attacks, and then like using the little disc thing that shoots you, the launcher,
Yeah.
that gives you a different attack. Like that one shoots a 5 shot that then goes into rapid fire horizontal
Yeah.
stuff like that. And there's a lot of different things you can mix up, and all the weapons kind of have that. And some weapons like the Nodachi feels really slow. It's like a Monster Hunter hammer. We have a thing called ABC, which is always be charging,
Hmm.
and it's the ABCs of hammer. Well, same thing with the Dachi. You're kind of always charging, but the Katakuri give you like maneuverability and your attacks quicker and stuff like that. So there's a lot of that becomes a reliable resource, which is interesting because I would think I would hate that. And at first, I thought, oh, I'm going to hate this. I'm going to hate that I have a resource. This is wire bugs all over again. I'm going to be so mad.
Yeah.
And oddly, I have been really okay with the way that it's been working, and I'm really shocked, which makes you just wonder, was it integrated better, or was it because it was its new thing? It wasn't like Monster Hunter, where I go, this is too drastic of a change. Like if this was Monster Hunter,
Yeah.
if somebody said this is Monster Hunter, I would tell you it's too drastic of a change for Monster Hunter.
Agreed.
But because it's its own IP,
Yeah.
that's why I'm accepting of it.
Yeah, I wouldn't want Monster Hunter to add building, like the Karakuri element. As fun as
Hmm.
it is in Wild Hearts, I don't think it belongs in, um, like, not to that level. Maybe you could build one thing, or, you
Yeah,
know,
like that helicopter's pretty great.
the helicopter is fun. I do like the helicopter. Um,
So
but yeah, I also had my first multiplayer experience with you guys and got to see how other people play. And I think that also highlights like, oh, the skill gap is so big between myself and you guys, but also from, you guys aren't, I assume, pros at the weapon either. So it just goes to show you how much depth there is to this game once you really start finding your stride. And there's also so many unique ways. And Miniguy was talking about this of everybody plays the weapon the way they want to. You were trying to teach me your way of playing bow, which I can really like understand what your rotation is in your process. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. But to me, I was looking to play bow a little differently, and I haven't found what it is yet, but I know it's a slightly different than your style. And
yeah, like I watched Mini Guy. We talked about this. How he plays bow his style, and I play
yeah,
my style,
yeah,
and it's really cool. And some of it has to do even do with the katakuri that we use,
yeah.
and it was like, yeah, I told you that different play style plus the way you change your weapons, how you can customize the skills you
Oh
have
yeah.
on your weapons. That also changes your play style too. It's again, I really enjoy that.
Yeah, and to some extent, I think it makes the player slash hunter think harder about what it forces you to have a much stronger connection to your weapon, because it's one thing when you're playing Monster Hunter and you have your weapon tree and it's like, okay, I can just, this weapon's working for me. I can keep upgrading it. And if you really want to like expand outside of the weapon you've upgraded, you have to pull up this big menu and kind of, it's not as obvious what you're trading your weapon for without a little bit more extensive research. Whereas in Wild Hearts, where you have the full weapon tree mapped out in front of you, it's a lot, I think, easier to absorb that, okay, I can go down this path and build this kind of weapon, or I can go here. And it really makes you stop, or at least it makes me stop and think a lot more, which is also a little bit more intimidating. Because in Monster Hunter, if something is working for me, I'm just like, yep, just upgrade this weapon, just upgrade it. And then I'm like, oh, okay, this fire weapon is no longer useful against a fire monster. I need a water weapon. Like, I go very basic. I don't, I don't go through spreadsheets and build skills until I really need to.
I will
Um,
let you know that can happen in this game. Like it can get crazy.
oh, that's what I'm saying. It can, but I think it forces you to actually do that earlier because you've got a weapon tree where you're like, well, am I going to go here? Am I going to go here? It's
Mhm.
not just I just want to upgrade this. Just give me more strength.
Yeah, I actually built three bows because you can go like middle, top left, and top right.
Right.
I built three bows and I had each one start going down each tree. That way, when I go, I start mingling off into different directions. So I have three
Hmm.
different builds for my bows
Hmm.
right off the bat. So I actually have three different bows sitting in my inventory that I switch between, and that helps me with different situations. And I play them all slightly different too, like with different kind of curry as well. So.
What's the biggest difference between the three?
Some of it can be via the element. So for example, whether you want like poison or fire, stuff like that. Also, a weird thing, just a
Mm.
note tip for everyone: you don't have to have. This is gonna sound weird. A poison weapon to cause poison. If you
Mm.
have a talisman attached to you that can be like, oh, have a 5% poison buildup.
Right.
Oddly, now you can cause poison. I
Oh,
don't
that's
know why.
interesting. The
Yeah,
talisman
I
just
don't
adds
know.
poison to all your attacks.
Yeah, I
Interesting.
know, right? I was like, this isn't gonna work the way I think it does, right? So I had a non-poison bow. I attached the talisman, and I watched the monster get poisoned. I was like,
Hmm.
or kimono, whatever they're called. I was just like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. It's just the weapon gives it more build up, stuff like that. It's like it gives helps it build up faster. But like you have different elements because again, there's a bird that I have to deal with
Mm.
that I have three ways of approaching it. There's um there's your element, which I could use fire, I could use wind, or I can go with like I said, like poison. But if I were to have again like a fire bow, and I have my talismans are things that give me poison buildup, and I have other things on my gear that gives exhaust buildup. So that is the build I want for that bird. And
Right.
everyone who knows that bird, they know what I'm talking about. And but that's an example of plus the different kind of curve I want to use because there are, for example, like my walls. Like I like building the big walls.
Hmm.
They do not work on that bird. Like that
Oh
bird
yeah, it
just
just flies
blows through
over.
them. Yeah, exactly. It just destroys it instantly. Like it doesn't really run into it. So
Mm.
you also change up that type of stuff. But you have options. Everything's not so straightforward. And also, I'm going to say it now, and someone's going to correct me, which is fine. But there is no meta build. There is no one right way to handle everything,
Not
which I
yet.
like.
Not yet.
Anyway, yeah,
I think
exactly.
as the game gets more mature, people will eventually, there'll be a few community leaders. They'll say this is the best, and then there'll be people who search what is the best, and then they'll just take that for granted, and that'll become the meta.
And another thing I'm going to add to the whole bow thing is how, or weapon thing, is how, like, I have some which I call survivability bows, which I get more healing back. I drink faster, stuff like that.
Hmm.
So, and it's a raw build, but it's the thing of, but I use that for some fights that I know I just get the snot kicked out of me,
Right.
but at least I can recover quickly, you know. So again, different strats, different build,
Yeah.
and that's all on your weapon. And the last thing I'm going to say about weapons, which is funny, I said this to you. I said it reminds me of the sphere grid from Final Fantasy X.
Yeah.
Like you should see some of these builds because they go down and they go winding. Imagine, again, using Final Fantasy X for those who know, like you have all your different characters, like all whatever 9 characters. Now imagine going slightly into every single character tree. Imagine that winding path that would create. That's what it looks like when you're building these weapons because you leave stuff behind, you pick up different things, so you get your optimal
Yeah.
bow.
It gives the player so much to think about in a very different way. Like it's a very different
Mhm.
system, and I like it. I like
Well,
this
it
system.
it feels like my weapon too. It's not what the blacksmith that said, "Hey, I need this weapon." They just build
Right.
it. The only time in Monster Hunter you feel like, "Oh, this is my weapon," is when you use augments. Like when you put on, like, "Oh,
Right.
I want heal, I want more attack, I want more slots." That is where you start to feel a little bit more like it's yours. But then But in Wild Hearts, they take it even deeper. Again, like I always talk about how I have this TTRPG of Monster Hunter, and I talk about like truly having deep customizations, and that's one of the things that Wild Hearts gave me. That I'm like, yes, like I want this level of customization with my weapons,
Mm-hmm.
and it's there because it's not just about the weapon that reflects on the player, on the hunter.
Yep.
So you don't think of it just as the weapon. Think of it as the hunter as a whole,
Yeah,
and
because
that's the customization I'm talking about.
even the bow, I seeing how you play, you stay very far. It's all about putting walls and putting distance and sending barrage on the monster.
Mhm.
Whereas I think Mini Guy, he mentioned this, or at least my style would be, no, I want to be up in the monster's face. I want to be not too far, shooting him, like zipping around him. And so, yeah,
Yeah,
there's a lot of
like
different
I'm a
ones.
heavy bow gunner, so of course, like, yeah, I like having my distance. But
Mm-hmm.
look, I watch my wife play. She plays bow,
Okay.
and she plays like Monster Hunter. She like zips sides by sides,
Right.
like you would in Monster Hunter. She plays it Monster Hunter style, and I
Okay.
love it. She's very exciting to watch.
Right.
So,
So on the flip side, then, the kimono. How have
oh, the
those?
monsters.
How yeah? What's your impression of those compared to
Oh,
years of
we're only
hunting
going to talk about
monsters?
chapter one. So that's the thing, right? So now I had a list of things that I said I want to see out of Wild Hearts. It's I say it's their first installment, so I still wanted to see at least 8 weapons. They barely hit that, and honestly, they could have had more because that Katakuri staff honestly could have been 2 weapons and 2 weapons. Like those, I feel like they should have done like a Shuriken's dual blade thing, and then they probably should have done like a staff great sword thing. Like they should have separated them.
Hmm.
But for I honestly I felt like we could have had possibly more weapons out of them. But anyway, I think a dedicated throwing, like I told you, like if it was dual blades and then you put it together for like a thrown shuriken thing, that
Yeah.
had been one weapon, I think that would have been fine. But like I was saying, I digress. So when another thing I wanted to see was at least 4 areas, and I can confirm that there is 4 or more areas. So good. And the last thing is I wanted to see 18 or more monsters, and that's not counting small monsters. It has to be large monsters.
Right.
And now some people ask, like, oh, do subspecies count or variants? You know, like the way you have, like Rathalos and Zora Rathalos. I'm like, yep, those are 2 different monsters. I'll accept that. So if they did something like that, I will accept it. They do something like that, but they take it to another level. They actually like even give them different names. It's not just like where we have the Great Jaggy and the Great Baggy. And you go, oh, or like another one is like or Rogi, where you go, this one's poison, this one's non-element, and this one is sleep.
Right.
Like you can kind of see that with Wild Hearts, where they go, oh, we have this monster, it's basic, but it's grass, and then this monster is sleep. And you go, oh, so that's our great jaggy, great baggy situation. But as things evolve to other things becoming these tempered and arc tempered type of monsters, you know, these EX deviants and all those people know who I'm talking about. You know, the thing is, these type of creatures, they even give them different names. Like we saw, I'll say it because it's on promotion.
Hmm.
You mentioned lava back, but they recently added one of their first new additional monsters, which
Yep.
is the Lahar back. And so he looks like a lava back, but he's like black with like purple like glow, and he has like a big mane and stuff like that. So you go, oh, okay, but he is a slightly newer, different monster. They take it an extra little step.
Right.
But all in all, I can confirm that there are more than 20 kimono as they tweeted.
Hmm.
And I was thinking like, is there really? But again, I even said if they got to 18 or even short of 18, but if they released more monsters, then the roster got to above 18, I would accept that.
Right.
And right now, we already know that they've added one and they got 4 more about to come out.
Right.
And some of them are completely new monsters. Like there's you can see from the picture, there is a I'll just say what it is without saying it. There's a fox. There's
Hmm.
going to be a fox monster, which I think is really great because you see all these little monsters like that you can pet or collect,
Hmm.
and they're kind of like hints at the bigger monsters
Oh,
because
interesting.
everything, yeah, a lot of the little monsters you can go like, oh look, it almost feels evolutionary because you can find like a small rabbit,
Yeah.
and then there's like the big rabbit, and then there's
The
the monster
medium-sized
rabbit.
rabbit. Yeah.
Right, and I'm just like, oh, that's neat. Like, you know, oh look, there's the small bird, there's the bigger crane, and then there's the bigger bird. You know, for all you peacock lovers.
Right.
So, but like, there's like different evolutions of like all of them. I really like that. It reminds me of, like Pokemon or Digimon.
Oh, good point. Yeah.
And yeah, so you can see like how they maybe evolved to said creatures or something, even though they are their own. So all in all, there is plenty of variety, lots of different monsters. I am enjoying all the fights, even the fights I hate, because there's I can't say I hate them. I just fights that I prefer not to play by
In
myself.
chapter 1, which one do you dislike?
Okay, I think this is in chapter one. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the very first hunt that I was like, "Ooh," was actually people think I'm gonna say grit dog, but it's not grit dog. It's
Freaking
the
beaver.
spore tail. It's the rat that sleeps you. Just because
Oh, I just fought
as
that
a
thing.
bow main, there are so many little like minions that
Yes.
like if I had like in the dachi, I could just sweep and hit all of them.
Yeah.
But when I played bow, I was like, I'm getting swarmed. It was great. Again, I still love the encounter. I still like the fight.
Yeah.
I have nothing against it. It was just called different, just like in Monster Hunter. Different weapons have different matchups with
Yeah.
different monsters. So like with weapons and monsters. So
That
same thing here.
that
So
monster is where I decided to start my staff tryout, the one that morphs. So I
mm,
couldn't do anything because I was always getting put to sleep. But I have to say, like, good job on them for because it's the great baggy or the great
right, great baggy
roggy,
puts you to sleep,
great baggy.
and great.
So the great baggy is there with two of his minions. And
Right.
honestly, like at the stage that I'm at in my Monster Hunter journey, I'm comfortable with it where I'm like, they're not going to put me asleep. Like sometimes I get lucky, but most of the time I don't feel threatened by their sleep abilities. In Wild Hearts with this fight, there's like 5 other rats constantly living. Like, and if you try to kill them, he just summons 5 more like so quickly.
Yeah, he'll
Uh,
do roar, and the more pop
right.
up. And it's
I
funny because
feel threatened by the sleep in this game.
yeah, actually, one thing that people have commented in the monster community is they want small monsters to be like they were in Old World. They want more like problematic, like bull drum situations.
Ugh.
I know it's frustrating, but
Ugh.
it's what we want.
Ugh.
And this fight delivered that. And I'll tell you right now, when you get the high rank, you're gonna get
Oh,
used to the old school Monster Hunter
I'm
experience.
gonna punch a wall or two. It's honestly, I was getting so I played a lot of the first 3 monsters that you play up to the pig. And I was getting kind of bored where I'm like, okay, I got this. And I really didn't like the pig because with a katana, you have to be close to them so you don't see them because the
Mhm.
camera's struggling.
Yeah,
Um,
the meleeers have to deal with this
right.
freaking meat sack. Giant, literally takes up your whole peripheral of your screen.
Right. And then all of a sudden, oh, he's attacking me with his tusks. I couldn't tell that this green mass was turning into like hot mass, whatever. And now, so those 3, I felt like, I'm like, okay, I know how to fight these. And the next series of monsters, I fought them all once and I'm just getting, and it's because I don't, I need to practice. And it actually shows the level of kind of skill you need for this game because usually my style is very much I'm a minimalist in how much I hunt. I don't over
Mhm.
prepare. I hunt as little as possible because it's more about progress than about like maximizing and efficiency. But frick, I actually do need to like stop practice on these monsters because the difficulty curve just increases significantly and I'm just feeling super outmatched because I'm not well versed enough in the skill set I have and understand what the monster has. And you mentioned Grit Dog, that thing destroyed me. Freaking, I call it a beaver. I know it's not a beaver, but I like calling it a beaver. And that said,
Yeah.
the diversity of these monsters, the fact that everyone feels so different from
Yes.
like, and I'm just talking chapter 1. I don't know if it
Even their
continues.
subspecies can feel different. Like they can have new moves and everything. Like
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. Like I've been thoroughly entertained, and
Mhm.
I have enjoyed the grind. I have actually liked going back hunting the same monsters over and over again to
Yeah.
complete sets or get builds or whatever. And I have yet to get bored whether I'm playing by myself or with people.
Yeah.
I I'm enjoying the hunts, and that's important. You want that gameplay loop
Yeah.
to be fun, and it has been. Oh,
And
by the way, be warned, it's gonna get really hard.
I know. I can already feel it.
For everyone who likes hard games, good news. Come play Wild Hearts.
Yeah, but to your point, I also enjoy going back for the old hunts more than, and this is an early game. The fact that I'm actually enjoying going back. The only exception is the pig. I don't like the pig, which is why I
Yep.
hopped into Wild Heart or into multiplayer. And
Mhm.
I'm like, I really need to kill this pig a few times. Will you guys help me out? And that's where multiplayer really shines. It's like, oh, help me like get through this thing I don't like doing on my own.
Yeah, like there's an awesome you've run into him. It's the wolf.
Hmm.
And that monster, that kimono is the one that after I beat it my first time, I was like, okay. And after that, I could pretty much have exclusively fought it in multiplayer just because I go, nah, I don't want to fight this thing by myself. I like playing against people, with people, I mean.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, so like everyone has like their monster. It's funny because like Lava Back, I completely styled on. I don't even think I think he
Nice.
hit me once the entire fight. And like I had so many close calls where he just barely missed me, like with his dives and everything.
Yeah.
That fight actually ended up being one of my favorites just because of how cool it was. You know, I talked to somebody like Ads, who Ads Venture, he hates Lava Bag. That's the monster he asks everyone, please go hunt it with me. I
Right.
don't want to fight it alone.
Right.
So
I like that it's with lava back. I'm pulling off more like of the iframe dodges, and it's so noticeable. I'm like, I should have gone hit there, but I'm not. And I'm realizing, oh, there's iframes in this game,
yes,
and I'm getting better at pulling them off, especially on him. And I feel I know his move set. I haven't, skilled myself enough to actually. I can recognize the move. I'm like, oh, and then I get hit by it because I'm not good enough to dodge it yet.
yeah, and it's funny. Like I'll mention something with the pig, with King Tusk.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he does a thing where I call it the Prometheus run away from things, school of running away from things. It's a
Yeah.
joke from Cinema Sins, which is when he jumps up and he starts rearing. If you try moving left or right, he tracks you perfectly. You can't. You have to run
Yeah.
away from him,
Yeah.
not to his left or right. And so that's the joke with the Prometheus school of running away from things, is because if something's falling, you should move to the left or right. Don't run straight away. You still get hit by it.
Right.
But that's how you avoid it, oddly.
Weird.
But you just gotta learn it. You just gotta learn it. But then we have the last thing when it comes on to hunting, is the not hunting. It's the gathering. It's the
Yeah.
exploration, the gathering, how that all goes. Which is I've been enjoying just quickly pick crit because it's like Rise. Rise has everything. You pick it up super quick, right?
Right.
But World had like an old World had also a satisfying like clink clink, like clunk, like stuff like that. Like I miss that clinking,
Yeah.
rather than just quickly going dink, move on.
Right.
And Wild Hearts is also really quick with the way you just grab things really, really quick. But when I go to actually have to get thread or something, go chunk, chunk, chunk. It's fast, but I'm getting that multiple hit. That's where I go. There it is. That's
Mm.
the medium I'm looking for. That's that old world or Monster Hunter world mixed with Rise. Like it's that in between. That's what I want. I want to be fast, but I want
Yeah.
that multi hit and possibly bring back that wonderful shing because I love that shing.
Yeah, I love gathering everything in Wild Hearts too. To your point, I only wish the banging on the rock or the banging on the tree to like get more threads. I wish that there was a resource out of that because I do love that banging a few times.
Other than thread, yeah.
But it's only thread, so it's not really for resource gathering, like for crafting.
Yeah, because
and stuff.
everything else, when you pick up wood or minerals, it's one click. You just literally L
Yeah.
and you click and you pick it up. By the way, there's also there's a skill for anyone who goes, I don't like multi hitting.
Yeah.
There's a skill that you can get where you just one hit the
Oh.
thread and all of it pops out,
Oh,
and
nice.
you can increase how much pops out too. So
Wow.
yeah, it's
I,
pretty
I
cool.
do. I'm fine if it's wood on the ground, and a lot of the times that's what it is. Like wood on the ground, okay, I'll pick it up. But if I'm gonna go chop a tree down, like let me chop it down and gather some wood out of it. It feels satisfying.
Yeah, I wish there was some other ways to gather, but plus they have these little nodes that you can like place down using your resources to gather minerals for you. So
Oh,
if you're
yeah,
someone who doesn't want to go gather,
right.
good news, there are things that can look like lumber, minerals, etc. for you.
I
So
I
I
haven't
think there's
played with
even a
that yet.
way to
But
get I think they grow like vegetables, and then there's another thing where you can gather fish for
yeah, the
you. And
paddle wheel.
yeah, and by the way, we're not going to get into food because Jay hasn't gotten that deep into
Because
food.
I
And food can get like interestingly complex, but it's the cool thing about food is like I'll say this at least. You can actually take food, let's say dry it out, and then from after you dry it, then you can marinate it,
Oh
and
my
then from
god.
there you could like cook it,
Oh,
and then that will give you
that's
so many like buffs on a single meal, and it fills you up. So you only have to make like one or two, and you'll get full just by eating one or two. But you get all the buffs and resistances and everything you want, increase stamina, etc. So like the cooking gets really cool, and I
mhm.
love how deep it gets.
I might appreciate it more when I can like directly tie like okay this effort's going to lead to this, but right now I'm just still drinking out of the fire hose if there's just so many things between the weapon and learning the moveset of the kimono and then dealing with the story, and it's just throwing a lot at me that for the amount of time I play it per week it's
Yeah,
I'm
you're just eating the raw beets. You're like, where I found this growing out of the ground. Nom,
whatever,
nom.
it gives me buff.
Raw
Let's go.
mushroom. Here we go.
Not
Let's roll.
optimize. Yeah, just
So
hunting with grass in my mouth. Let's go.
But yeah, so I do like the gathering as well. And of course, the last thing is we talked about online for a bit.
Yeah.
Now, online is actually something I have a mixed bag about. Now,
Okay.
while we have crossplay, bless it, how you can like easily find people because like for me, I have a tag which is NFF. And
Okay.
if you, which is nothing for free.
Yeah.
The thing is, and anyone who just types that in, they can always find me. They can easily jump in. We don't even need a password. We can just be like, yep, because no
Yep.
one's gonna type NFF. It's so specific. Like for you, we can have Hey Jay.
Yep.
That's it, and then we can easily find you. My one gripe is when you if you were to jump in with randoms, like
Hmm.
let's say you use the SOS Flare version of this game, or you just warp into another person's world or whatever.
Right.
After the hunt's done, you're kicked out. There is no like, hey, do
Oh.
you want to stay teamed up? The only
Right.
time you stay teamed up is if they have joined your world. Like, let's say again, we looked you up. You said, "Oh, hey Jay, joined his thing. We jumped into your world. Now we're all going to stay together." But if I
Hmm.
were to just be like SOS Flare, like in let's say World, in Monster World, I would jump into somebody. I would go on a hunt with them, and then it'd be like, "Oh, we did really good. Let's stick together. Let's all go back to camp together or Astera." And you could stay together and keep hunting together. And you could build friendships that way. I met people that way,
Right.
and that was really cool. And but they don't have that in this game. There's two things that happen I don't like. One, like I said, once the hunt's over, you got 30 seconds till it's done. You're kicked out. That's it. The other thing I really don't like is if you go in through one of the little warp portal things, the hunter's gates,
Hmm.
the moment the hunt is over, that's it. You're kicked out. You don't even get the 30 seconds to run around.
Right.
You just go like, "Yep, here's your rewards. Bye," and the game kicks you out. It sends you back to your world. And I want more of an option to stay with people. I want it to be when you jump in, you can click like R3 to say stay in world. You can stay with them, and if the host wants to kick you out, they can kick you out. But
Yeah.
that's like a again a minor gripe where I go. I like the Monster Hunter does it one way compared to other, and I had a problem with that with Rise where I think Rise actually they do have it where if someone joins you, you can stick together. Now that I'm thinking about it, because I remember having some randos I still play with.
Right.
So I Rise does have that.
My multiplayer experience is going to be different because it's very uh, one way. I always host. I don't join,
Hmm.
rarely
Right.
join, and rarely play with randoms. Like, sure, they're random, but it's people I chat with. So I have to say, the once I understood how it worked, it was so smooth to connect.
Hmm.
You know, I didn't have to like say, okay, like go online, wait, create a lobby, password. I mean, you do, but it was so much smoother and faster. And while I was still trying to figure out like what info do you guys need, and like people were already in my
Yeah,
world,
we can see your stream. It was easy to figure out.
right? It just seemed a lot easier and smoother than my experiences with World and Rise. And then also the fact that it's crossplay is just like
Yeah,
freaking
that makes
amazing.
it so convenient. Now, my one also gripe is this Monster Hunters. I'm guilty of this too. I liked in World where you have a 16 player lobby. It may be only four people do a hunt, but everyone else can join to the world, go on hunts together, whatever.
Yep.
I don't like in Rise that it limits you to four like the
Yeah.
old hubs. I'm like, nope, this is your people. I'm like, that sucks because I like having multiple people. Because again, we had a thing called minimum wage hunters,
Right.
and it's a running joke. We have minimum wage guardians, hunters. It goes on and on. Well, so when we have lots of people who want to join in, like I have like 50 members. So the idea is that we all, 16 people in the hub, that's fine. And then we can easily change out people, they can hunt together. I want that in this game too. You only get three people, which is you and two
It's
others.
I didn't
It's
realize how
so limited.
small it is until you like, two people join my lobby. I'm like, oh, that's it.
That's it. Yep.
It's a small group.
Hmm.
I do miss the guild too. Like I remember in World where you could have 16 just running around and interacting, and even though you weren't hunting with all of them, like it just created for a fun atmosphere of having this hub where a lot of people, like a lot of friends, can get together and just have a good time.
Yeah. So but that's a personal complaint. Appreciate the crossplay. I don't like getting kicked out, and I want bigger hubs. Otherwise, everything runs smoothly.
Yeah.
Again, I like how we don't get stuck on load screens while waiting for other people,
Yep.
because in Monster Hunter they all want you to start at the same spot, which I understand. Like everyone has to start at the same time, but
Hmm.
at the same time, I kind of like that you guys load in quicker to me. I have all my settings on like ultra, so therefore I might take longer to load to you. But hey, I'm here, and then you're not going to finish the hunt in 10 seconds. It's fine,
Right.
anyway. But you guys didn't have to wait 10 seconds for me. And then you have someone like we were playing with Medwaka. His internet went poo poo, so his thing was like, "Hey, I'm joining you guys. Just wait for me. He's coming." But
Right.
that's okay. Like, but we didn't have to wait because of the other players.
Yep.
And if they drop out, good news. They can hop right back in.
Yeah, I'm actually shocked that the online works so well, considering how many technical problems this game had. It looks like
Yeah.
it looks like their online team though was on the ball and was like, no, we gotta get this
Yeah.
working. So props to
Whoever was in
them.
charge of that, they did great.
They had a good yeah tech there. So I mean, we've gone on quite a bit about Wild Hearts
Well,
with a lot of pros and cons. Was there other areas of it that
no,
you want to address?
I was gonna say, well, now that I feel like we've kind of touched on everything, when it comes to the monster, we can talk about the chapter one ending
Mm,
fight, and that is the monster that needs to be. We talk about want to talk about comparisons.
yeah.
We gotta talk about Zora Magdaros versus Earthbreaker. Who's better, or should I say, who's worse?
Honestly, so when I first saw Earthbreaker, that the introduction, everything, you're like, oh, this is a Zora Magdaros clone. The fight itself is different enough that they are different,
They
and
are different.
I would say Zora is more epic. Earthbreaker is more fun, but that's not saying much. Like
Yeah.
compared to the other kimono in the game, he's not fun,
I,
but compared to Zora, he's more fun.
I love how when we were watching you stream, like we were in a voice call together, a bunch of us, and we are
Mm.
watching you play, and I'm like, man, he just because I don't know the name of the boss, I haven't done it yet in Dark Souls 3. It's the
Mm.
one with the
The
hands,
shackles.
whatever. The thing is, yeah, and I was like, ads, what's the name of that boss in Dark Souls 3 with the hands? It goes with the hands, like where you have to hit the wrist things.
Yeah.
Somebody type to him, and like somebody else, like I saw somebody say like it's like the boss in Dark Souls 3, and then like
Right.
ads is like it's like Whale Lord, whatever his name is. I'm like,
Yeah.
Jay, think Dark Souls 3, and you're like, you actually remember. You're like, you mean the guy with the wrist? You're all like, he remembers. And then I was like, I had to think of the one thing that I know Jay would absolutely. I think I'd be like, I know Jay so well. Here we go, Jay. Think old school NES game.
Yeah.
Which is
Old
I'm
school
like
NES
that.
bosses, Nintendo bosses
Yeah,
specifically.
exactly. I'm like that is because I'm like that's the way he. I think he remembered. Like he when he fought that boss in Dark Souls, that's what he
Yeah.
called it. And then I'm like, he's like, oh, attack the hands.
Right.
And then so I'm thinking like that's the connection,
I did
and it was
not
so
think
funny.
I didn't think Wild Hearts would go that route. The way they presented the boss, and there was no obvious signs to attack like the hands, other than it was the only thing in reach. But
Mhm.
this game doesn't, at no point does it ever say reach is an issue. Like they give you tools and everything so that you'd never have to be right up in the. So I thought that they would have given me something. Like I think I tried at first to like try to shoot a harpoon to its face to like go and run up
Yeah.
to it. I was like, I can't do that. And then like someone was talking about the artillery. I'm like, oh, there's artillery. So I look back and I see all this artillery. So my Monster Hunter mind gets in. I'm like, oh, I got to go run the artillery. And everyone's like, stop overthinking. Just hit the thing in front of you. I'm like, really? Hit rock? Okay.
And that's the sad thing. I loved your ideas. I was like, yeah, why wasn't these mechanics for this fight? Why couldn't I like harpoon onto him? Why couldn't I shoot the artillery? Why was that
Yeah.
not an
Cause you
option?
do, you
That
do harpoon to him in the lead up to the final bit.
you're right. There is a part where you get on his back and you bust the
Yeah.
magma cores essentially, and
Yeah.
then yeah, I was like, okay, and like I love the chase. That felt cool.
Yes. Yes.
But then it was like time for the actual encounter, and the encounter to me was so lackluster.
Oh, yes.
And in which case, and this is gonna sound crazy, I go, guys, I'm sorry, I like Zor Magdaros more. Like
Mm.
I like Zor Magdaros. He kept popping up. The thing is, oh, but because as far as I know right now, I'm hoping that there's some sort of high rank Earthbreaker, or they release some sort of volatile Earthbreaker.
Yeah.
But as far as we know, that's it for Earthbreaker. That's your hunt.
Right.
Done. And, and if it is, that's heartbreaking because I feel like there should have been, because you can see on his back that there's like a shrine and there's like a broken
Yeah.
bridge. I was expecting to have a God of War Shadow of Colossus moment
Yes.
where
Where
you
you're
climb on the
climbing and
parts and do all this stuff. And if I had to do like Shadow of Colossus style, where you had to climb on the back and then like stab
yeah.
on the head, and that's the whole fight or
Yeah.
something, or you stab them and that brings it down to the part where you do,
Yeah.
I like the finale, I would have been fine with that. But honestly, I didn't feel it because some people don't know this about Zora Magdaros. You don't have to get on its back. yeah, you have to go on, break its course off of that. But
Hmm.
other players can actually go to the artillery while it's walking across and
Hmm.
blast it. And then we get to the final area, everyone hops off. But you can even hop back onto them.
Right.
Like, I had more options and such. And plus, we got the greatest moment ever. Where's my Dragonator? We get a
Yeah.
Dragonator. Gotta pull that sucker. It feels great. Get a good
Right.
cutscene and everything.
I definitely think, given the world, the lore, it could have been more about the hunter leading the way, climbing, and like, you can direct your the village, like attack now, or like I've created
Yeah,
this
hit the
opening. Um,
yes, put a thing like shoot a flare so they
I,
know the fire there with the
right,
artillery, like
yeah.
something.
The whole game is all about like, oh, you can climb on monsters, you can like do all these things, you have all these tools, and I feel like maybe it's a budget scope, timing scope. I'm
Maybe.
okay if that's where they had to scale back to like get the rest of the game out, but
Hmm.
there was a lot of missed opportunities with it.
So some people I've talked to some people, they like the Earthbreaker fight more. They
Yeah,
like, no, this feels more epic, or again, it's quicker or whatever. Like, cause
yeah.
Zora, no matter how
Zora
fast you
drags
go,
on. Oh my
it's like
god.
12 to 16 minutes at fastest.
Right.
The thing is, and now I don't want to hear you hate because I'm about to bring up an Arc Tempered fight, but there's an Arc Tempered Zora Magdaros, and
Is
the
there?
reason I also yes, there is.
I didn't know
There's an
that.
Arc Tempered Zora Magdaros fight, and in that fight not only is he like he deals more damage, he's tougher to destroy, what all that jazz, but the part where Near Gigante comes down, you have to fight Near Gigante. You can't just ignore him. And that
Oh,
felt cool to have to engage Near Gigante there. And I even said, why wasn't this the default fight? Why wasn't it we're like, nope, you have to tussle with Near Gigante. This is your first real like tussle with
like
him,
a
and then you get
repel.
to fight him again later.
Right.
Yeah, because that's what you do. You do repel him.
That's a
And
good
I
point.
that's
Yeah.
another thing I have with Monster Hunter. I want more repels in my fights. I'm tired of always killing the Elder Dragon. I like repels.
I think the
And
repel
it makes
builds a
sense.
good story.
Yeah, and also it shows just like, oh, they're so powerful, where like you can only repel them, but if you
Yeah.
become truly a great hunter, you're able to defeat them.
Right.
Like that feels monumentous and like a true triumph. And
Right.
I miss those moments.
Yeah.
And like I said, so but the Arc Temper fight is you can actually in true story, I actually failed the Arc Temper fight because you get 25 minutes to do it.
Oh,
And the thing is, and if you're not fast enough destroying the cores and repelling your Gigante, you might be up to 16, 20 minutes. So you got like less than 5 minutes to just do all
so
the cannon parts and you could fail.
it's a time
And you can
difficulty. It's not a real
and
difficulty in that case.
and he can destroy the barricade in like two attacks if you don't properly time using your binders or your Dragonator or
Oh,
whatever to push them back.
right.
So it's also timing those too.
Yeah.
Like this felt like a good fight. And I know someone's gonna be like, "You mentioned the Art Temper fight. You gotta talk about the base." I'm like, "Look, that fight exists, and it's great. That's like Xeno'jiiva. I don't like Xeno'jiiva that much. Great design, terrible fight. But the Art
Yeah.
Temper fight was like, oh, this is actually a fun version of the fight. I
Right.
liked his Art Temper moves. So I'm
Right.
just saying. So
So yeah, it was it was nice to have a different flavor in Wild Hearts at this point, like to close off the chapter, but some missed opportunities, but it's
yeah, I want a proper siege battle in Rise, Sunbreak. We need a siege battle. Come on.
yeah. Yeah, you
At
kind of
least
got
one.
one with
It's tradition.
the Sunbreak uh boss, but not really.
By the way, their example of a siege battle was the Rampage.
Oh, we don't talk about the
Ugh.
Rampage. I nope, I have nothing. The best thing of the Rampage was the soundtrack.
Sure.
That's it has
I,
it's
I,
some of the best
I'm
music in the
honestly
whole game.
thinking. I'm trying to think of like what was the Rampage music. Oh well, I mean it doesn't matter because like
Well, there were two
they
parts.
wasted.
There was
Go ahead.
the bass one, and then there's when you hit the flare and it like picks up. But it's like it's what I play in my intro, the stream intro when I play Rise. That's the Rampage music. It's actually some of
Is
my
it?
favorite music from the game. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm glad that you recognized it. All I remember from Rampage is how much I didn't like it. Sorry to the 5% of people who actually like Rampage.
Right.
They actually raised a statistic. It was something low. It was like, I forget if it was 5 or 15% of like the community liked Rampage.
Right.
So it was really low. But other than that, like I'll never forget the waste of Proof of a Hero against Ibushi.
Oh,
Uh,
that was so disappointing. Because
but
I
that's
was
okay.
new to like Proof of Heroes. I
Mm,
hadn't had a
that's
lot of
great.
Proof of Hero moments. I think gone off my Fatalis one around.
You hadn't even
No,
been to Fatalis
no, I hadn't
actually.
been to
Yes.
Fatalis. Where had I
Yeah,
gone
not
my
yet.
where had I gone my proof of a hero then? Maybe it was I don't think it was the Iceborne. I don't think I finished Iceborne either when I had. But I
No,
just
you did.
remember. I just remember like
But
why is
if
this
I'm
happening?
correct, which I don't think I am, but I think I might be. But the thing is, I think your first proof of the hero, I swear you had one more prior. I'm trying to think where it could be, but
I do
other
remember
than
having
that,
one before Rise.
yeah,
Yes.
before Rise, and because I remember you having, but well, who could it have been that you had a proof of hero because you hadn't done Fatalis yet,
No.
and unless there was one for like
Is there?
Zor Magdaros or something, but I don't think there is.
There's got to be one in Base World because I had
So
finished Base
somebody in
World.
the comments, please let us
Yes.
know where's the proof of a hero in world, base world.
Yeah.
Help us out here because I know Jay had not done Fatalis yet, which is to me one of the best proof of a heroes, one of the best. But you
Yeah.
remember, guys, season 4U, he'll get the best proof of a hero coming.
Oh. Oh. I'm looking forward to that. Um,
Anyway,
with that, do you want to talk about For You and kind of wrap up the Wild Hearts and get into our
sure. Let's start talking about like some more fluff stuff because we've been in this for probably an hour.
yeah.
Um,
Well, we're
where
at
are
an
we
hour
at?
20. But to
Oh,
wrap it up, why do Monster Hunters fan hate Wild Hearts, or why is there video game tribalism? I don't know. I don't understand it. If you identify with being this, I only ask, have an open mind, talk to someone with a different opinion, and you know, try things. Um,
yeah, and I guess this to say to everyone else that I've talked to about that same problem. Like honestly, guys, there's no reason to hate on the game. They can both exist, and we're not saying that Wild Hearts is better than Monster Hunter and that Monster Hunter is better than Wild Hearts. I'm just grateful that on the list of things that I wanted, such as more voice acting, more story, again, the speed that I told you they give us to pick up stuff, but it's not too fast like Rise, but it's just as fast as World, stuff like that. Like they gave me those, but also they gave me things like I can build a camp anywhere. Again, that's something I wanted. They gave us again. I told you like I want that building mechanic. I want more dialogue with people, and I want to maybe have a little bit of background. I like those more RPG elements. Like those are things I wanted, and if someone were to say, well, that's not Monster Hunter. Like that's a different game. You're right. That game is Wild Hearts, and I appreciate
yep.
Wild Hearts for existing and giving me that. I mentioned Code Vein earlier, and like if somebody were to say like, "Oh, I want a Dark Souls experience," it's more like anime and has waifus and vampires, and it's more like or something like that. I'd be like, "Good news, that exists. It's
Mm-hmm.
called Code Vein." So,
Can't wait
it
to
has
play
like a
that.
like I have a partner with me the whole time too. I want and like has different characters. Again, it feels like an RPG, but again, it's a Dark Souls game. Again, that game exists.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to get it from Dark Souls, so go play Code Vein. You can
Right.
still love both. So
Great.
there, I said it.
Now we teased a few times gyro controls, and I think gyro control is how we address the what we've been up to since the last time we got together a
Sure.
month ago.
Let's do that. Let's talk about what we've been up to since last time. So
Yeah,
Jay, what you been up to since last time we saw you?
yeah. Well, it's been about a month. I mean, everyone on this channel
Uh-huh.
probably already knows because all my journals show. The Final Fantasy VII pledge had just been completed, I think, last time. The 100% pledge. I just started Crisis Core. That is now surprisingly done. It ended just as I was starting. Ended a little bit faster than I expected, so that's done. Got into For You. So I'm at 4 or 5 star in low rank For You, loving it. Fantastic Monster Hunter game. And as of today, actually, I just finished, started this a year ago, Lego Star Wars, the new one, whatever it's called. And I just 100%ed that with my son. So that is our first, I think, game that we've 100%ed. Now the next one he wants to do with me is Super Mario World. The one with Bowser's Fury, the one that came out on the Wii U and then they re-released it on the
Tomorrow
Switch.
3D World.
And I'm dreading that because Lego Star Wars that's a time suck difficulty to 100%. Mario is a skill game, and I tried 100%ing it on the Wii U, and I never could beat the Crown World, which is like the end game. And so now to do it with him, that means I have to I think it's actually harder in multiplayer because now you have two people that have to survive, which makes it harder. So that's going to be hard to do, but that's what he wants to do. So we'll see. He
Honestly,
100% in Mario Odyssey. Hmm?
I think that's gonna be super fun because I kind of miss where there's some games where, as you know, where Super Mario you have to take turns, but then there's some like the one you're gonna play where you get to both be on the screen at the same time.
Right.
And I loved playing with my buddy Michael and stuff like that, where we got to be on the screen at the same time. We had so many hijinks, so much
Yeah.
fun stuff. I think you guys are gonna have a blast. And by the way, that DLC little added thing they added,
Yeah.
oh boy,
Oh, I
it's
played it all.
not long, but it is quality.
The Bowser's Fury, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah, 100% of that already. So,
yeah. So you know
yeah.
how good it is.
It's the
And
hijinks are fun. It's when you have to do the hard stuff. That's where two players on screen gets hard, like really hard.
so yeah, so okay,
How about
so as
yourself?
for me,
Hmm.
I my pledges, I just finished beating because on this journey I had to beat Dark Souls like 1, 2, 3, Bloodborne and Demon Souls, all the bosses, etc.
Hmm.
I've already finished all the bosses and everything for Elden Ring and Sekiro. Which big shout out to Sekiro. You're having your by the time this drops in like a day or two, it'll be its 3 year. Oh, is that 4 year anniversary? It came out in 2019.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
It's
but as I
like,
was saying though, but I finished Dark Souls 2, all bosses, and my goodness, what a journey that was. Jay, again, one day you'll play it, and one day all I'll say is you have to try every boss, but you do not have to do them.
yeah.
Trust me. Also, I just finished Splatoon 2. I'm also on a Splatoon thing where I have to do 1, 2, 3, the Octo expansion, all that jazz. Splatoon, it's on the am I wrong journey of that one. It's been fun to learn all the behind the scenes stuff, but Splatoon 1 didn't really sell me too much. Splatoon 2, okay, but the Octo expansion was really good. I did like it. I have been enjoying 3. I've touched it a little bit. But
Hmm.
the Octo expansion that you got to see me play that one
Yeah.
mission that it took me 80 minutes to do. And for context, everyone, Foom Knight took me 80 minutes to defeat. There's this mission with like it's called Power Girl Station, if you know what it is. It took me also 80 minutes to do. And obviously I did it all without Gyro. I'm doing this Gyro list. And not that I'm a
Why?
Gyro user. That's the thing. So you probably played when you played Splatoon with Gyro. And
Yeah.
like my kid, when he started playing, he played with Gyro. But oddly, when he went to 3,
Hmm.
he stopped using Gyro. He went to analog. And
Strange.
yeah, and which is again, I thought that was odd too. And here I am being like, all right, this is it. I'm gonna finally learn Gyro. I did not.
So you don't like
Um
it? You just don't like gyro?
it's not that I don't like Gyro. I think I just still gotta get used to it.
Oh,
And maybe if I had spent more time with maybe with the Switch in handheld mode, or I have a Pro controller so I can use it like that.
right.
My problem is I like the swivel in my chair, and when you have Gyro on,
Oh,
it doesn't work too well. And that's a me
how
problem.
much are you
But
swiveling?
I swivel a good bit. Anyway, so the
Okay.
thing is, but the other thing is everyone who's watching me do the expansion, they said like I don't know how you're gonna do this without gyro. Like there's some things that are really hard to do without gyro. And
Yeah.
yeah, I see what they're talking about, but I got through all of it. It's all done. And it was fun. It was challenging, and the final boss that you get for unlocking everything
Hmm.
is honestly, I'm sorry, Melania, you've been replaced.
In Splatoon?
Yeah, that's what I said.
Wow.
There's a hard boss in that game that is painful.
Octo
But yeah,
expansion or Splatoon 2?
it's Octo expansion. You have to finish all 80 levels and
Oh,
missions and the
wow.
story mode as well. So
Right.
after you 100% everything, you
Right.
get a final special fight, and that
Okay.
fight is pain. Like we're talking over 100 attempts without even a success. We're talking
Well, did
like a lot of work.
have you been it yet? You have
So
been
I
it,
have
right?
to, I know, I have to admit that last night
Oh,
I didn't finish that last fight. And I was like, everyone's like, yeah, it's fine, just go finish in your own time, etc. I'm like, yeah. Last night I couldn't sleep thinking about that fight. I cannot accept defeat. I was like, you know what? I was just too tired last night. I'm
hmm.
gonna get through my stuff. I'm gonna record it with Jay, and then I'm gonna beat that boss. So today, after we're
Oh,
done this,
you're going
I'm
for it.
doing it. I'm going on stream, and we're doing it. So
Well,
anyway,
good luck. I'm actually
I'm
now
not.
more curious to play Splatoon 2 than ever
Uh,
because I have the Octo expansion. I just didn't play
yeah,
much of it.
and I know that you kind of gave up on it, and that's the funny thing. I will say this, and Splatoon people will thank me for saying this. Where I know you kind of gave up, you lost interest. I totally get it.
Yeah.
It honestly, Octo expansions what finally drew me in a bit. In Splatoon 3, because it's been 5 years since the last one,
Yeah.
they actually developed the game. Splatoon 1 and 2 feel like 1.5.
Hmm.
But the third one actually feels like a proper sequel. There's a lots in it. Plus, since you played the first two, story wise,
Right.
you'll like, and lore wise, which you'll like very little of, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
Because when I do the Dark Souls stuff, they love asking me like break down the lore, and I'm like okay, and I do really well. Because again, I love the Dark Souls lore because it's like solving a mystery. I love putting all the pieces of the puzzle together and figuring it out. But with like Splatoon, they also sprinkle a little lore in there, and
Hmm.
supposedly we get the most lore in the third game. But they've asked me, so what do you think of the lore so far? I said, oh, I think it's this, and they said like you nailed it. So they're like, you're getting
Okay.
it. I'm like, again, I'm like a detective,
Right.
but I'm a lore channel, so I like putting that together.
So
But
back
we
to
were talking about
Gyro.
Gyro,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So, so when it comes to the Gyro, well, first before I go on a little rant, I want to know like, what's your personal take on Gyro since you did use it for
Y-
Splatoon
yeah,
1.
so I played a lot, almost exclusively on Switch for many years and Wii U.
Mhm.
I forget where it was introduced. I don't play handheld, so I was playing with pro controllers and stuff with the gyro, and it became so intuitive to just get like that little adjustment when you're aiming. When I went back to, I think it was a PlayStation game, and I had to like aim with a joystick, it felt so sluggish. And I remember like if you go into one of my tweets from how many years ago, I was complaining. I was like, the next gen, like if there's anything that came out from the motion control revolution, it's gyro controls. Like that is an evolution of gaming. That's what everything should have now is motion controls, or sorry, not motion controls, gyro controls.
Gyro.
Because yeah, when you're like aiming a bow or something and you just need to like, just get it right and you just lift your hands a little bit, that's great. Now that said, there's parts where it's used really poorly, like in it's called Age of Calamity, the Breath of the Wild game spinoff.
Mhm.
I had to turn it off for like the scenes where you're using the big guardian things, which oh my god, I forget what they're called as well. The beasts, the divine beasts. You can play those with gyro, and I had to take it off because it just wasn't working. But for a shooting game, either third person or first person, yes, please give me gyro.
That's interesting. Yeah. So you talk about how you wanted more of this generation of them to be picked up, and it has been getting picked up more lately as a
Yeah,
viable option for aiming,
yeah,
which is fascinating to me because an odd thing is like look at Capcom. Capcom added gyro to their Switch release of Resident Evil 5 and 6,
mm,
and which is weird because it comes with 4, 5, and 6 on a disc, but only 5 and 6 had it. So anyway, but and then they will, they do have gyro for Resident Evil 4's remake, which is coming out like this week or whatever. So there's that. So if you have it for a PlayStation, or if you're using a PlayStation controller on Steam, or if you have a Steam Deck, like I said, you can use gyro controls. Then you have like gyro in Monster Hunter like World for PC exist,
mm-hmm.
and then Monster Hunter Rise for both Switch and PC. That's there too. I mean, in 2022, we got to see gyro support from Horizon Forbidden West, Last of Us Remake, God of War Ragnarok. And I went and poked around with some forums with gyro enthusiasts who admit that there are many games that they don't play because of the lack of gyro. An
Right.
example is like Doom 2016, a game that you played.
Mm-hmm.
In Doom Eternal, like Doom has gyro on PC, and Doom Eternal has it on PC and Switch. So the gyro enthusiasts actually would seek out platforms that had gyro. So
It
even though they had it like on one thing, they're like, nope, I want gyro.
it's so hard to go back after you've been conditioned to use gyro, like to go from it's so intuitive, right? Because it's not you're just adjusting by moving your hands versus I don't know, it's just different part of the brain, I guess, that's activated. But yeah, it's hard to go
Yeah,
back to joystick.
yeah, and I'm glad I'm seeing it as like again, like I talked about the different evolutions of controller options, um, which is going to be you have like some left-handed people actually use the left analog to
Mm-hmm.
look and right analog to like walk. And then you have
Hmm.
some people actually will use face buttons like the square, triangle, circle, X. Like they'll use that to look around, which and they'll use like the analog. This sounds like Monster Hunter One as like the button inputs. I think that's crazy.
Oh, that
Like
is
they do,
wild. Yeah.
right? And but then we have things like people, of course, want inverted stuff like that. So having, of course, now gyro is an option. That's good. Like honestly, I'm all for it. I think that wherever it also draws in. We talked about tribalism. Bring
Yep.
in more people. Whatever
Yep.
brings in more people to try out more games, I'm all for it.
Right.
That's what they should be doing. Um,
It's all about
but
customization for whatever. Like the more customization you can offer your game, let people play the game however they want, if they, if it makes sense.
um, but like I said, so it's funny we talk about gyro. There's a big gyro enthusiast in our community. His name is Vulcan Fox, or as you put it,
Faux.
Vulcan Foe. Which by the way,
FAUX. It's faux.
he confirmed that he's like either one works. Like I know
Oh,
I
okay.
call him Fox, and then because his name is by default Fox. I think on Discord his name may be Rick/Fox.
Okay.
But either way, but big shout out to him. He's a big gyro enthusiast, and him like UMail and stuff like that. They sent me a video to help me understand a bit of gyro more.
Mm-hmm.
But while I'm on the term of shoutouts, I wanted to do a little segment called community shoutouts,
Okay.
where again I give a lot of giveaways on my channel,
Mm-hmm.
and I do that on pretty much a monthly like basis. And so I want to take this opportunity to give, because we have a term which is like, because we have the classy crew and we have the free lifers. So if
Mm-hmm.
you're a classy life, which is like you're kind of part of both our communities,
Mm-hmm.
this is a nice, see right now this is our medium ground, our podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to give a shout out to him. He got to the top 5% in Splatoon 3's big run. Trust me, I say that's a big deal. It's very hard to do. And for his amazing dedication and effort, I wanted to award him with a gift. He's been wanting a copy of Sekiro for PS4, so it being its anniversary and the timing of that couldn't be better. So I'm sending him a copy of that. It's on your
Oh,
way, so enjoy that
amazing.
gift. Other gifts I want to, of course, give away. Of course, we had a giveaway recently, and Nero, we all love Nero, of course. He's our friendly neighborhood German. So he
Drip Fest finalist in the last Hey G Drip
oh yeah,
Fest. Yes.
true that. And but he, being the awesome dude that he is, honestly, absolutely like tubular. He gave his giveaway to ads because he's like, oh, there's something I want right now. He goes, everything I want is like far off because like what's that game? Hollow Knight? What's the one that's coming out?
Silk
What's the
Song.
other Hollow Knight?
Silk Song.
Silk Song. Like Silk Song's far away. Yeah, Elden Ring expansion stuff like that. There's all so far away. So he gave it to ads. So ads got his gift, and then
Nice.
of course and then so I appreciate it. But because he's just so awesome, I have a little something special I want to still give him. So Nero, expect that in your inbox soon. And a last little shout out I of course want to give is I mentioned back in the first podcast Sekiro. I was like, hey, how come nobody has finished Sekiro? There's all these people who no one finished. And MHK was the only person who stepped forward and said, actually, I finished it. And I talked with him, and he
Nice.
did. So I want to thank you, MHK, for stepping up and finishing Sekiro, and or being the only person in the classy life community that finished Sekiro. And I'm gonna give you a little special From Software gift as well. So expect a DM from me if I don't catch
Wait,
you in
a
these
from
streams this week.
a from soft gift. Is it going to be a punch to the face?
It's just pain.
Just pain. Here, have more pain.
Here's your pain. It's a poison swamp.
Right. Oh,
That's what
lovely.
it's a Miyazaki gift.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, but for anyone else, again, you guys do all kinds of amazing accomplishments. We love hearing them. Put some down in the comments below. Let me read over them, and you may be the next person I'm going to give a gift to. So, reach out, man. I'm excited to hear some things that you guys have accomplished this year.
Yeah, I also want to echo that, and I want to hear some because when I was taking some people, not so much anymore, but months after like my victory over Alatreon or Fatalis in World, which was a pretty big accomplishment for myself. Some people were coming out to me and saying like, "Hey, ever since I saw you do it, I've been trying myself, and I've done it, and I never really had a way to personally I could always say." How to feel, congrats, and like engage with the person individually. But yeah, if you have any of those personal victories, drop them in the comments. We'd like to highlight them more on this community segment of the podcast.
Yes, like Zelda Potato Boy, you can beat Fatalis. We believe in you.
This year it's happening.
This is happening.
It has to happen.
The whole community's rooting for you, man.
Yep.
So now normally this is when we go into like old business, but we are running up a little bit on time.
Yep.
So we're gonna kind of move to an outro. That's okay. We'll make time for another podcast because again, sometimes you might get 2 or more a month. And we're gonna have a nice little times where we can make some comments based off the podcast you heard today, and we'll talk about the last podcast. So the next podcast will be kind of just a community podcast, is what we're gonna do. But for right now, I just want to say that Jay, you're going to be gone this week. I know.
Yep.
So is it for your XP gaming stuff?
Sort of, yeah. It's for GDC is in San Francisco this week, so the Game Developer
Oh,
Conference. So it's
right.
kind of this time of the year where all of the gaming industry gets together to like share knowledge, network, do business. And what I'm doing in Canada with the XP Game Developer Summit is a very similar type of event, but it's on the east coast of North America.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it's much smaller than GDC. GDC attracts 30,000 people. We're much smaller. We're expecting like 1,000 this year. But yeah,
Cool.
so I'm going there to network, let people know what we're doing here in Canada and Toronto, and um, get my business further ahead. So
Yeah,
that's
and
why I'm out.
that's awesome. And especially, I know you also have a big summit or something happening next month as well up in Canada too, right?
Yeah, so that's what I was saying. The XP Game Developer Summit
Right.
is. I have XP in front of so many things. Even this freaking podcast, XP Hunters,
Hey, XP
because
Hunters, baby.
yeah, because my company is called XP Gaming, and then the event, one of the events we put together is XP Game Developer Summit, and that's coming up in April, April 20th, 21st in Toronto, and it's bringing all the developers together to do business more primarily in Canada, but also East Coast, United States. So we are working with a lot of like New York studios, and there's quite a community on the East Coast of the US that doesn't really have an event like GDC. So the XP Game Developer Summit is good for them. It's not too far away, hour flight or 5 to 8 hour drive. So quite comfortable to do. So yeah, my time has been very much limited by that event because 1,000 people event. It's big. So
Yeah, that's exciting. And I mean, your time's been very limited, especially lately. I mean, you've been going to two different studios, which
yep.
is because, again, it's why we actually got the privilege, my good sir, of watching you finish Crisis Core, which is also giving us the
Yep.
opportunity for you to see some other things that are on your backlog of pledges, if I'm correct.
Yeah, yeah. So um recently, I guess in the past month, so my time's more required in Toronto, and where I live now is not Toronto. I live outside of the city, quite a ways away. So having to be between the cities, I need two places. I have two studios. There's the one where you see me film everything. That's kind of like my home base, and this home base I cannot properly stream Wild Hearts. My computer is just not good enough. But in the new studio, I built something completely new. So that one actually runs Wild Hearts better. My internet connection there is better. So I actually stream at 60 frames per second for that. However, what I've realized, it is confusing for people to have one game one week, one game another. Right now, it's Wild Hearts when I'm at one studio and another game when I'm not. And I've realized there's a lot of people trying to avoid spoilers too for Wild Hearts. So I'm actually going to be putting Wild Hearts on the back burner. I'm going to switch back to the old pledges I've promised. People say I keep making new ones too many, so I'm going to go back and clean some old stuff. Devil May Cry 3 is going to be the next one that I dive into starting the following
Great game.
week. Yeah.
It's
And
truly the start of the franchise, trust me.
I heard it's
So,
also the hardest, so I'm a
it
little
can
worried
be.
about it. And then I want to do Dragon's Dogma. So
Yes.
because Devil May Cry 3 is probably going to take me a month or two. I heard it's not that long of a game. And then Dragon's Dogma, because this community is very like knowledgeable about the game. I've heard so many great things about it. I'm so curious about it. And by the time I'm done all that, I think more people will have had the chance to play Wild Hearts. And then we can go through it together as I usually, my journey is always behind everyone else's journey. And that's how I like it. I like it when the community is more knowledgeable so I can I'd rather lean on the community than have the community lean on me when it comes to game insights.
Oh, yes,
So,
I 100% agree with that. Like, I'm playing the Dark Souls franchise, like I said, and I've been leaning on my community. I allow backseat gaming. Just don't spoil
right.
story stuff for me. And but like, I absolutely appreciate it. Like I play Sekiro every so often. I sneak a stream in for that. But the difference is, I know that game, so I get to
Right.
like teach my community Sekiro stuff, and they're teaching me Dark Souls stuff, and but as for Dragon's Dogma, you guys all heard it, which means all Dragon's Dogma enthusiasts, or if you're new to the game or wherever, it's also on sale right now, which you can buy
It's
from
like
Jay's
it's like always on
Texas.
sale.
The thing is, so buy it because you can create a character. These your little pawn,
Mhm.
they will go on a journey with you, and everything that they learn, Jay can recruit them as if
Oh,
he's friends with you for free. So you could have your third character on your journey
Mhm.
be like one of ours, and they could be like whether someone has a healer or a tank or something that's more weight to carry, a tank, a
Okay.
healer, a damage dealer. Plus, they gain knowledge from quest. So if you go
Oh.
on a quest, they may be like, "This monster's weak to fire," and they'll say that for you,
Oh,
or be like,
nice.
"Be wary of the path to the left;
So,
it's full of traps." Like
huh.
they'll tell you that. And so, community, start working on your Dragon's Dog's characters. You heard it. You got a time
That
frame,
that is really a whole other level of having community integration. So outside
right?
of the Twitch
So
chat, they will be in game through their characters yelling at me.
yeah. So, but on the note, and as for myself, while Jay's gone, I'm gonna be, of course, covering for. I always cover his streams when he's not there. So if you want to catch me every day this week, I'll be playing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and
Woof.
Friday this week,
Loaded
and
week.
I and Saturday. But Monday through Friday this week, it's gonna be time to die week because I'm going to be playing Dark Souls 3 every day this week.
Oof.
So if you want to catch it and you want to help me out with it, I highly appreciate it. And the sooner I get through this, the sooner I can get the Bloodborne because my chat will not stop talking about Bloodborne, and I have to get through Dark Souls 3. This is going to push me ahead by 4 weeks worth.
Wow.
So that'll give me a whole month's
I'm
worth of work at a time.
I'm so curious to see your take on Bloodborne and the end game.
Everyone is.
I think you're gonna love the end. Like I think you're gonna love. I know you're gonna love Dark Souls 3 and how it ends. Bloodborne is the one I'm like. I'm really curious how you're gonna feel about that one.
Well, we'll find out. But until next time, I want you to have a safe trip, Jay.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for this time. And we'll when you get back, we'll get the next podcast out.
Absolutely. And for everyone else, thanks again for joining, for listening. I'll see you on the next podcast, the next stream, or the next journal. Until next time, keep it classy, or as Blue would say.
Enjoy the hunting life. Gee.